Liam Hetherton is my pick for the 2025 Coates Talent League leading goal kicker. Hello everyone, welcome to another Craft of the Draft introducing video. Today we're going to be spotlighting Liam Hetherton, a player who will spearhead Murray's attack in 2025 and put himself on the map in the second half of 2024 in a couple of representative games and some games for the Murray Bushrangers as well. He's part of a conga line of tools for AFL recruiters to keep an eye on this year that also includes Cooper Duff-Tytler, Louis Emmett, Archie Ludowick, Tyron Armour, Jasper Hay, Taj Murray and Cody Curtin. So there's a lot of them for AFL recruiters to look at. The reason I've got Liam Hetherton as my leading goal kicker is I think he's set himself a really strong platform, and I think there's a lot of assets to really like about his game, which we're going to go through in this video. And we'll start with his ability to kick goals in short spaces of time. He showed it in the under-17s trial match at Avalon Airport last year, where he kicked 5 goals and was the difference really between the two teams. New South Wales ACT got a 23-point win, and he really stood up when it mattered. He showed that he could take contested marks. He showed a couple of different ways that he could impact the game, both aerially and at ground level, in a really dominant performance for a 195-centimetre player. And he really owned the responsibility of being the main man in that forward line. He also kicked 3 goals on AFL Grand Final Day in the annual Futures fixture, where he really settled into the game nicely in a match which can be quite difficult for players to, get into a rhythm, given it is such a big stage and it is such an important fixture, and it is one that players do look to target playing in and playing well in. But he was one who certainly showed no signs of nerves. The game, though, that I really started to take notice of him was a little bit earlier in the year, and one that's probably not talked about as much, but it was when he kicked the 2 goals for against the Dandenong Stingrays. He was very inexperienced in his Coates Talent League career at that point. He hadn't kicked a goal going into that game, actually. And his body language in the late stages of that game was really, really impressive. He worked hard all day. He presented really well, and he was able to find different ways to kick goals, or at least generate scoring shots. Probably would have liked to have been a little bit more accurate, but he kicked or had 4 scoring shots in the last just over a quarter of that game, and Murray were outplayed for a lot of that day. Certainly had no scoreboard ascendancy for much of the day, and they were just hanging on for a lot of it, and he was probably a big reason why they were able to stay as close as they were for as long as they did. Even when the game did get out of reach, he still continued to show really positive body language, grit and determination, which was a big tick for someone who didn't necessarily have the experience of some of his teammates, and paved the way for what was to come when we look at it in hindsight. If you look at his year overall in 2025, it probably doesn't jump off the page. He kicked the 9 goals across 8 games. There's a couple of things that we need to know. One is that he was thrown around positionally a little bit. He spent some time in back line, spent a little bit of time in the ruck as well. But the bigger thing that is interesting about that is he shared the forward line with Jack Whitlock and Matt Whitlock, both drafted to North Melbourne and Port Adelaide respectively. And he also shared it with Josh Murphy, who's now on Collingwood's VFL list and was the leading goal kicker in the 2024 Coates Talent League. They combined for 84 goals across 37 games between them. What's really impressive about that is he had limited opportunities as a result of those players getting prioritised, a little bit, certainly commanding a little bit more of a presence. And they were probably the ones that were getting targeted a little bit more when the ball was going inside 50. But when he did get his opportunities, he certainly took them with both hands. And at no point did it look like he was sort of getting in the way of the Whitlock twins or Josh Murphy. He was able to complement them really well, and they were able to form a really potent punch in the forward line when he was up there. And at no point did that forward line look cumbersome either. They were all very good below their knees, and Liam Hetherton in particular was one across the games he played in all the different teams that he represented that was able to kick goals in different ways. He was able to remain involved in general play when the ball did hit the ground. And that's something that's really impressive about Liam Hetherton, is that he is so good at creating soft drops for his small forwards, which makes him quite reliable. If you're a coach, you know that if you target Liam Hetherton, he's not going to get an intercept mark taken on him, which means that if you trust your small forwards, that means you should be able to lock it inside 50. And by extension, he's a player who's able to contribute to that. And by extension, Liam Hetherton is a player who's able to remain relevant in those ground level contests rather than just being a marking target and that's it. And that's something which we're continually seeing is so important in the modern game, and certainly Liam Hetherton ticks those boxes. Another game he really complemented those players was against the Bendigo Pioneers, where he kicked 3 goals in the first quarter and really set up the game for his team. But having said that, he really did seize being the main man in there when he was able to do so in those couple of representative clashes that I talked about. It was really, really impressive and seemed to relish the responsibility of having people look to him when they were trying to keep the ball inside 50. And that's something which we'll see a lot more of this year. And by extension, we'll see how he goes when he does play on the best key defenders, because no doubt the best key defender on opposition teams every week is going to go to Liam Hetherton at Coates Talent League level, and possibly when he's playing for the Allies as well. But in a positive for Liam Hetherton, he's going to have players like Harry Dean and Lenny Collar that he can match up on at training, because Murray have probably got two of the best key defenders in the Coates Talent League. So be interesting to watch some Murray training sessions throughout the year, because I think that would be a battle that people would love to see on the big stage. Unfortunately, because they play on the same team, we won't see it. But certainly he's one who will benefit from having them on his team to learn off. As for some other impressive traits about Liam Hetherton, I think his height and reach are really impressive. He's 195 centimetres, but probably plays even taller than that. When he does launch at the footy, he's someone who is really hard to stop, because he gets the ball at the highest point and he protects the drop zone really well. And we expect that's only going to continue to improve as he does get a little bit stronger. As we said, he obviously stays involved as well if he's unable to take the mark. And he's also someone who works really, really hard. I talked about it in the Dandenong Stingrays game, but I'm looking forward to seeing him this year present an option long down the line, because that's something which he can do really, really effectively, at least create a contest. And then if he's not involved in the play or he doesn't win possession, he's then able to outwork his opponent, get goal side, and make himself really, really dangerous going back towards goal. And he's got the athletic base as well to be really dangerous if he does find himself in that sort of 50 to 70 metre range of the ground. So in summary, he's a momentum player who can kick goals in a hurry. His forward craft is very, very strong. He understands leading lanes very, very well. He'll relish being the main man in the forward line, given that personality and swagger that he does have. He's got a very, very good athletic base. He's a very good contested mark, and his work rate is very, very high. It's a pretty good combination for a tall forward going into the 2025 season. He's set himself a strong platform, and I'm looking forward to watching him for the Allies, for the AFL Academy, and for the Murray Bushrangers.